I am James Yoder for College Football Now, breaking down Notre Dame, Syracuse from Yankee Stadium, taking a look at the bettor's perspective with Brent Corobotiuc from BetDSI. Brent, the number 3 Irish playing in a game, a neutral site game, Yankee Stadium against Syracuse, a team that gave Clemson a decent game a couple months back. So the Irish are 10-point favorites, over-under on this one, 65. Talked about how you guys got to that number and maybe where the money is coming in here earlier in the week.
Yeah, it's kind of boring sometimes when we get these things right. And this is another game in terms of the spread. We talked earlier about Michigan was the same thing. We opened 28 there. We're sitting at 28.5. And right now, same thing with Notre Dame, where we opened them at 10. They're still a 10-point favorite. So this number has been bang on in terms of what we're trying to do here in terms of balanced action. Now, so far, I've got a little bit more recent money on Syracuse. So my wager count in terms of the actual number of bets I've taken is like about 2-1 favoring Syracuse right now. So it's kind of trending that way. I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of dipped down, based on the way it goes right now, if it's just public money involved. Now, I do not have any sharp money involved in this game yet. The public money usually comes in on the over, and that's the case as well. So the total I have seen tick up from around 63.5 up to 65 where I am right now. So that's gone up basically just on public money driving that number so far. I've got a wager count almost 3-1 favoring the over in that one there. But the side, my money's not too bad. My wager count is, slightly favoring Syracuse, like I said, around 2-1. And this is, the neutral field is a big deal, I think. And Syracuse, obviously, they're on, they've been on quite a run. That one hiccup they had versus Pitt, I guess, is really going to haunt them when they lost to Pitt on the road. They've won 4 straight games. And, the thing with Notre Dame, I think that's kind of keeping this number where it is. And also, we look at the hypothetical matchups against them around the other top 4 teams is they really haven't, blown anyone away, and they haven't really had a real impressive schedule either, which goes against them. Now, they had some decent wins, like, the VTech win was a decent win, and, I don't want to, rub salt in anyone's wounds, but they did beat Michigan first week. Now, that was such a close game, a really tight game. And even right now, like, if you look at those two teams, seems even now that Michigan is the better team there. So Notre Dame, when you're beating Northwestern by 10, you're beating Pittsburgh by 5 at home, stuff like that. It's just, Vanderbilt, they beat by 5. Ball State was like an 8-point win for them. So I think kind of like the knock at Notre Dame is you wonder, how good they really are. Was it kind of a fluke that they beat Michigan? Are they that good? Beating up on Florida State last week was one of their first kind of notable victories in terms of winning margin, but we all know that Florida State's not a very good team. So I think there's still a whole lot of question marks out there with Notre Dame. Yeah, you're talking about a team who is sitting there undefeated at the top, near the top of the rankings at 10-0, so you really can't kind of kick them too much. But I think Syracuse is one of those teams who could play them really, really tough. And I wouldn't be surprised if this number ticked down. I just get a feeling that sharp money might be coming that way. Based on what I've seen so far, I just don't get the feeling that sharp money is going to come in on Notre Dame, not at this price.
The Irish are 10-point favorites. We've got the over-under right now at 65 points for Syracuse Notre Dame from Yankee Stadium. As you mentioned, the Irish have been around 500 with betting 5-4-1 against the spread, with the Orangemen being a little bit better. So I, for one, I'm going to put some money down Syracuse. I believe this will be a much closer game than some people might have thought a few weeks back.
You're not going to do that out of spite, are you, James?
What's that? No. I am not doing it out of spite, but maybe. I'm actually doing it on, lack of consistency from the Irish. But I think this will be a good game. I do think that the neutral site aspect of it throws a little bit of a wrinkle in there for a sports bettor. We are presented by BetDSI. We've got Brent Corobotiuc on the phone from BetDSI. You can get hooked up with BetDSI with a 120% deposit bonus. We have got hooked up for you. Promo code LIVE120 at chatsports.com/bet. 120% on your first bonus. Get set up with BetDSI today. Brent, want to talk about the college football playoff now. The Irish have dropped, at least from a couple weeks back when you and I last spoke, in where their odds are. Now you've got them at 11-1 odds, plus 1,100, behind a Michigan team that they beat by a touchdown 2.5 months ago. So why have the Irish dropped as far as the CFP odds in your eyes?
Well, I think it's just a reflection of what we've seen, on the field. I mean, Michigan really seems like, even like at this point in time, Michigan seems like the much better team than they were at that first game. Now, if you look at the numbers for that first game, there's pretty much nothing to choose between those two teams. So, the Irish did get that win, but I think right now it's pretty much universal. Everyone would say that Michigan is the better team right now. The other thing too is the schedule they've had. I mean, they just don't have enough tests out there, and could be that maybe it's the fault of Florida State for not being as good as everyone expected. Maybe it's Stanford's fault for not being as good as everyone expected. Virginia Tech, you can kind of blame the opposition for not being as good as everyone kind of had hoped for to put Notre Dame to the test. So I think the fact that they haven't blown anyone out as well is another reflection of kind of why they're not as well respected, I think, in the futures. And again, you're looking at them, let's say, Alabama's the overwhelming favorite, right? If it came down to Notre Dame and Alabama, Bama would be a massive double-digit favorite against Notre Dame, and they probably would whoop them.
Yeah, and so you bring up a matchup, Notre Dame versus Alabama. When we looked at the hypothetical odds from BetDSI when the first college football playoff rankings came out, Notre Dame was an underdog to almost any team they would potentially play. Teams like Michigan, who they already beat by a touchdown, certainly Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia, even at that time LSU. So why are the Irish, given that they're usually a public favorite, they're the Dallas Cowboys of college football, the Yankees of college football, why would they be an underdog to almost anyone they play in the college football playoff?
Yeah, it's interesting you touched on that in terms of like the fan kind of affliction that they have. But it's also when you get teams like that, you also have like a strong dislike for teams like that. So you get people who are basically out there looking and wanting Notre Dame to lose. So it's kind of like, we talk about this a lot with the Floyd Mayweather complex. A lot of people in boxing who bet against Floyd Mayweather, it's not that they actually think he's going to lose. They just want to bet against him for when he does lose, they can say, hey, remember when Mayweather lost? I had that, kind of thing. So I think that's kind of one of the things, the attraction, I guess, with Notre Dame. But it does go both ways. People like to bet against them as well. They'd like to see Notre Dame lose, and it comes down just to power ratings. Notre Dame, really, like we talked about, I guess the closest to them would be that Michigan game, and I would make Michigan a strong favorite against them, probably somewhere between 6 and 7 points. It was on a neutral field. Clemson, I'm guessing, would be somewhere in the neighborhood around 13.5. I'm just throwing numbers out here. And Bama's probably like a 17-point favorite against Notre Dame. And that's kind of a sad reflection of how good Alabama is compared to everyone else, but they're definitely head and shoulders or above everyone else. And I'm pretty solid, confident that those numbers would hold through if it happened. Hey, Notre Dame, like I said, I'm not going to say they were lucky to beat Michigan opening week, but they're fortunate that they did.
So, Brent, let's take a look at the CF College Football Sharp plays this week where the pro bettors are putting this money. We've got 4 games, Wisconsin +6, Minnesota +3, UConn, ECU over 65, and West Virginia, Oklahoma State over 70. So, talking about those games and why the pros are putting their money on those 4 plays.
Yeah, first off, we got Wisconsin. That again, the numbers are everything, right? Wisconsin, they came in at +6 at Purdue. Now that line has dropped down to 4.5. It's a spot too where I've got public money going with the dog there as well. So that's never a good spot for me when I get public money and sharp money going the same way. But that is the case here with that Wisconsin side. Purdue's kind of been just a tough team to figure out all year long. And I never really try to get into the psyche of the sharp guys and why they bet what they bet when they bet it and stuff like that. But the numbers are always always quite key in getting the the decent price at +6 versus the 4.5 that out there is it just indicates the sharp money that came in there. Minnesota is another one. Minnesota was a home dog at Northwestern. Now they're the home favorite here. They're I guess, talked about the other lines where we kind of been right with the Notre Dame line -10 and barely moved. Michigan 28 to 28.5, barely moved. This one moved quite a bit with the Minnesota line. They were a 3-point dog initially with Northwestern on the road. I've got a wager count almost 2-1 in terms of the number of bets I've taken favoring Minnesota, and that line is flip-flopped. I've got Minnesota as a small favorite now -1, so that's a quite a dramatic move, almost 4 points there. A total here for you is the UConn game over 65. Now, again, it's not always the sexy teams that we get to talk about in terms of these sharp plays because guys will find value wherever they can. And this one with the over 65 in the UConn game was a sharp play earlier in the week. That total's gone all the way up to 69.5. And again, I usually get a lot of public money on overs. This is one of those games where I've got decent two-way action in terms of the public money. So what's drive this number from 65 all the way up to 69.5 has been sharp money. And West Virginia, Oklahoma State is kind of how high is high enough sometimes when we put out these totals. Obviously, didn't even go high enough with this one. I got over money there as well. And again, these are typically teams who are going to put up a whole lot of points. You saw what happened with Oklahoma State, Oklahoma. These numbers just go up and just get beat up. And obviously, the public, it's really, it's tough in terms. Sometimes we try to overinflate numbers, thinking, okay, we know the public's going to bet the over, so how high do you want to go that you're not giving away value? 69.5 is where we came out with the opening number. I got bet by sharp money at 69.5. Sorry, at 70 is where I took sharp money, and we're up to 73.5 right now. So that's moved quite a bit. And as we expect, the public has tailed that over as well. Wager count almost 3-1 going the over there. So we're in a bit of a bad spot. We got to be a little bit more aggressive to try and attract some money on the under. And it's kind of you just kind of gradually want to tick a number up until you finally get the money back. You can kind of assume that public money's not going to come on the under. They've kind of tipped their hand already in terms of betting the over. So with the public, we probably could have opened this one at 75. They'd still bet the over, but you never want to go that high thinking that sharp's going to jump in on that. So we're slowly going to tick this number up and see kind of as a balancing act where we finally get some under money without taking on too much risk.
They play no defense in the Big 12, so I've been told. That is an absurdly high over-under, so I'm going to keep my eye on that one. You can bet those sharps plays. You can bet any game on college football and who will win the Heisman Trophy, the college football playoff, all at BetDSI. We've been joined by Brent Corobotiuc, the head of risk management for BetDSI. They are offering a 120% deposit bonus. It gives the opportunity to play a few bets, maybe lose a couple, not be out of a bankroll. So put down money with BetDSI, 120% deposit bonus using that code LIVE120 at chatsports.com/bet. Brent, we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good weekend, James. Thank you.
All right, thanks for that, Brent.